Hey guys, welcome to this tutorial. We're going to go over how to create a simple chat box application. As you can see here, I have a chat box opened at my website, and then you can go into this website to test this exact page out. And of course, I'm signed in as a random name, Steph. I'm just going to sign out, and let's say I'll type in Dino as my username, sign in, and I'll type in keyboards are noisy. Send, and it automatically goes to the bottom. Okay. Sorry guys. This is I thought something was wrong. This is actually because I have a 5-minute timeout for the messages. So all those messages you previously just saw, they happen to be expiring. They were just 5 minutes old and they were just deleting themselves. So no worries there. Everything is fine. And of course, you can change the time history for the message log to any length you want later on. I'll show you how to do that. So for now, you can type in any message like keyboards are noisy, or it's just some random letters. And and since this is a chat application, I can also go to a new browser. Let's say I'll use the dreaded Internet Explorer to go to the same page. And I'll just type in IE as my username. And if I type some random thing in, it updates both of the browsers. So whatever I just typed here for IE appears right there, and also appears here. And if I type in something, Dino says hi there, and if I send it, it says it in both the browsers again. So so there's a basic chat box application. There's not going to be any password requirements, or it's going to have a very low level of security. It's more for our learning purposes than making this for a professional website. So hope you guys enjoy this. Learn a lot of new points or a lot of new techniques in coding, and we'll jump right into the first page. So open up your notepad, your favorite notepad. I'm using Notepad++. And first of all, declare the doc type. Let's do that again. So I'm just going to declare the doc type, close the HTML tag, and give it a header tag and a body tag, then also give it a title tag. And just for your information, it's important to always declare your doc type, because if you don't, it will give you weird CSS or JavaScript bugs later on, where you'll have perfect CSS, or you have good solid JavaScript, but it'll give you an error anyways, just because of the reason you haven't declared your doc type. So remember to always do that, unless you're testing something really simple, I guess. So anyways, with that, I'm going to save this in a new folder called chat3, and I'm just going to name this file as chat.php. So once I've done that, I'm going to create the basic HTML that's going to give us this. Later on, of course, we'll add the CSS to make it look a little bit more organized. And it's going to be this one big CSS div tag it's going to be one big div tag that's going to include the whole chat box. And inside that, it's going to be divided into 3 more parts. The top part being the user login, middle part being the message log area, and the bottom third part going to be the new message typing area. So let's go to our notepad page, and let's give it a chat title of chat box. And I'm just going to go to the bottom, to the body tag, and give it a header. Call it chat tutorial and give it a div class for the overall container. I'm going to give it a class name of chatbox. Side, I'm going to give the first part, or div with the class name of user. Close that. The main part, or the middle part, div class main. Close that. And the last part, I'm going to call it message box. So once you've done that, I'm going to go ahead and create the focus on the first part. So if I go back to the all done page, if I sign out, I've made it so that when you sign out, you actually refresh the page, and I've not included any cookies or anything, so refreshing the page kind of forces you to log out. So it's a very simple chat application. So anyways, if I come back here, and what you see in the top portion is the input field for the username, the sign in button, and if I sign in with invalid username, then an error message pops up saying invalid username. So that's all going to be in the first part, and if I type successfully, it says welcome username and then the sign out button. So those are all the components that are going into the first part. So in the very first part, I'm going to create a form for the username. And I'm going to give this form name of sign in. I'm going to give it an action of null, and on submit, return false. And the reason I'm doing this is because we're going to be using Ajax through jQuery to be doing all of our server communication. So as far as the HTML goes, I wanted to just return false and do nothing. Then in a span tag, I'm going to create the error log saying invalid username, and I'm going to give this a class of error, like so, and I'm going to make the input field for the username input type text, size is going to be 13 pixels, name is going to be username, ID is going to be also username, value is going to be enter username, and on click I want it to go blank. And how you do that is by typing on click and then doing a little bit of a JavaScript. I'm going to type document sign in username, then value is going to equal to null when it's clicked. So that's basically if I go to my demo page, refresh the page. If I click here, like so, it becomes empty. So you don't have, so the user doesn't have to delete what's already in the text box. So now that I've done that, I want to create the submit button. Input type submit, ID of sign in, and value of sign in capital letters. And if I go to our demo page, which is going to be on our local host, it says invalid username, enter username, and then sign in. Now it says now it appears as a form button, but we're going to use CSS later to change it and make it look like an HTML normal link. So coming back to our form, now that we've got our first part done, before we get to the CSS, we're actually going to jump right ahead. Let's type something in the main message log section, just as a placeholder for now. I'm going to put a sample paragraph tag, say administrator hello messages here. Refresh. So you have some basic stuff. If I click on that, of course it goes blank. Whoops, I have some random names there. And if I go back to the bottom now, we're going to do the bottom third. And in this div called message box, I'm going to create another form. And I'm just going to show you what we're going to have is, first of all, we have this big huge button called sign into enter chat, which if I click, I come all the way up here, I can type in, and once I sign in, it changes to a text area and a send button to send the message in. So I'm actually going to create two separate forms in order to do that. The first form being the form for the big large button for you to sign in with. So I'm going to give this a name of message box sign in form, and I'm going to give it a ID of message box sign in form, and on submit I want to return false because we're not actually doing anything with this. This is just for the button to focus in on the input field at the top section. So once we have done that, we're going to create that big input button. Type submit, or you can just create a button, doesn't matter. ID of message box sign in, value of sign in to enter chat. Really simple. So if I go back to our little page here, we have that button that's going to be enlarged pretty soon enough. So we go back to our form, and now we're going to create the second form that's going to be basically our text area to type new messages in. So here we're going to say name, I'm going to give it a new name of new message, and then give it a class of new message just to make things simple, and an action of null, and on submit also return false. And inside here, I'm just going to create two separate div tags. If you see here, I have a text area on the left and then the send button on the right. Oops, something was kind of odd there. Everything's fine. Okay, so you see an error message. That's pretty odd. 1 second. So yes, I guess there's some kind of error message that pops up really shortly. That's the first time I've seen it, but yeah, it doesn't appear to have too big of a problem, so I'll just continue on. So once we're back here, I'm just showing you that we have the text area on the left and the send button on the right. Basically, I created two div tags, one called div left and then the other called div right. Okay, sorry about that. There's apparently I think there's some kind of server issue that's going on, so sorry about that, but I guess I think it's just that some of my code is not good enough, so definitely do not use this in a professional website. But apart from those little blinking messages, it's having some kind of connection problem to my server, so I'm not sure if that's my code problem or my hosting problem, but it's not too big of an issue, so I'll just continue on. So anyways, this text area is in a div that's floated to the left, and the send button is in a div that's floated to the right, just so that I can have them on the same line. You can position them using different CSS properties. I just happen to do it that way. So here I'm going to actually create those two divs, and then class of left, then div class of right, and once we've done that, I'm going to go ahead and put my text area on the left div. So text area is going to go right there. I'm going to give this a name of new message content and an ID of new message content, and inside I'm going to say enter your message here. Now if I go to the demo page, now if I refresh this, sign in, it says enter your message here, and if I click on it, it goes blank. So I'm going to code that part in JavaScript later on. For now, I'm just going to leave it as is. And in the div, on the right div, I'm going to create our input field for the submit button. So type submit, ID of new message send, and value of send. So if I go back to our page in progress, refresh the page, we have some basic HTML there. So now let's implement some basic CSS to make it start appearing like what we have here. So I'm going to go ahead, create a new file, and I'm going to save this as a CSS file. Let's create a new folder called CSS and save this inside there as global.css. Save that. And of course I have to link it to that file from my original file. So I'm just going to go to the header and say link and style sheet, type is text CSS, href css / global.css. So now that I've got that done, if I go here, refresh it, nothing happens. And before I start coding any serious CSS, I'm going to insert some CSS reset files, just so that it appears the same in all of the different browsers with varying default settings. So I'm just going to copy and paste this here. Of course, you can download my file and copy paste through there, or better yet, you have your own CSS reset file ready for yourself. And once I save that, to go back here, refresh, and I have all the margins and paddings gone. Yeah, that's pretty much the biggest noticeable thing for now. And let's get to the chat box. I'm just going to create a new section here called chat box. And our main big div tag, which is chat box, that contains everything else. I'm going to give it a border 1 pixel, solid and black, a width of 500 pixels, margin of 50 pixels, and a background color of some ET green. So 99FF66. that's the color we're going to use, or you choose whatever color you want. I'm not the best color guy. So if I refresh that page, I have some basic borders, some basic margin, and the color here is a nice lime green. And I'm going to go ahead and give a little style to the sign in button here. And to do that, I'm going to create a new style, chat box, and then user. Actually, I'm going to align everything at the top to the right, so doing that first, text align to the right, and padding of 5 pixels. So if I go back here, I refresh the page, everything's to the right, and there's a little bit of a readable space. Come back here, and now for the input button, I'm going to give it a color of blue, text decoration of none, background of none, and a border of none. So if I go back here, refresh the page, the sign in button now looks like sort of like a link, and right now if I hover over it, nothing happens, so let's give it some hover properties. So user input sign in hover, and I'm going to give it a text decoration of underline, cursor of pointer, and if I go back, refresh the page, and hover over it, it now looks like a normal like a normal link rather than an input button from a form. So now that we've got that done, I'm also going to give it a margin right of a few pixels so that there's a little bit more readable space between these text here. So to do that, I'm going to say user input margin right of 5 pixels. Come back here, refresh. So there's a little bit more readable space. And I want to make this text here red. So user error is going to be a color of red, and also give it a margin right of 5 pixels. So that makes things look a little nicer. And now that we have that done, let's see. Now I'm going to give it, I'm going to format the middle section a little bit. So I'm going to create a new section here called message log area. And that's chat box and main. Give it a background color of white, height of 300 pixels, padding of 5 pixels so the text doesn't hug the borders, and an overflow of auto so that when it becomes when there's a lot of text areas to display, it creates a scroll bar. And if we go back here, reload the page, it looks a little bit more organized. And now let's do some basic formatting for the bottom part here. So I'm just going to create a new area called new message area. Chat box, message box, padding of 7 pixels by 5 pixels by 5 pixels by 5 pixels. Gives it a little organized space. And I'm going to give it a width of 400 pixels and a height of 32 pixels. Now this is specifically for the text area. Yeah, it's 1 second. Let's see if I did everything correctly. Okay, so that's not supposed to be there. That's not referring to the text area. The text area has the div ID of new message content. So now, if I give it a font of 14 pixels and font family of Arial, sans serif, a width of 400 pixels and a height of 32 pixels. If I go here, refresh, there you go. The text box is about the right size now. And when you're doing this, when you're formatting text areas, you have the option of using rows and columns to determine their size. I suggest you not do that, because if you use rows and columns, first of all, it's going to be interpreted differently by different browsers, and it's going to be very obvious and not look nice. And if you use rows and columns, it's also subject to change depending on which font family is being used. So if someone's computer is not using Arial, then the chat box is going to look different in format. So just stick with pixels with width and height. That's your best bet. And now that we've done that, I'm just going to format the send button. So new message send, and I'm going to give this a height of 36 pixels and a width of 80 pixels. Go back here, refresh. Okay, so something's not right. New message send. Maybe I don't have that typed in correctly here. So new message content. So I have capital E there, so that's supposed to be lowercase e. So now if I refresh the page, the send button is correct. And I'm going to make the left div be a floating div to the left. So chat box and then message box, then left. And if I float this to the left and give it a width of 410 pixels, go back here, refresh the page. It's all in one line. It's looking a little bit neater. And I also want to format this button here, sign into under chat, to span all the way across this width and be a little thicker. So if I make a new CSS style, message box sign in, padding of 8 pixels will do, and a width of 100%. Okay, so there you go. You have the basics. Now we're going to be using JavaScript, or more specifically jQuery, to be hiding and showing certain elements. And the first thing we're going to do is work on the very top portion here and make that all usable for the front end, and also start implementing the back end for server communication. So the first thing we're going to do is create a JavaScript file. I'm going to create a new folder called JS and call this sign-in-out.js. So I'm just going to open my pre-made file just so that I can guide myself along while writing this tutorial. And the first thing I want to do is hide the error message here, and hide the text area and the send button at the start of the page. So I'm going to use some jQuery, create a function, and I'm going to say hide this element, and this element is new message. So if I go back to the page, nothing will happen because I haven't actually linked any of the JavaScript or jQuery files. So one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste the jQuery file to the appropriate location. So chat 3 is where we're doing everything relevant right now. So I'm going to go ahead and copy jQuery into there. I'm going to actually capitalize that Q. And I'm going to go ahead and link both of these JavaScript files from our main file. So I'm going to link the jQuery file at the top header section. Script type text JavaScript, or I'm going to go ahead and type source JS and then jQuery.js, type text JavaScript, and we're going to add the JavaScript files, the rest of the JavaScript files at the bottom. So I'm going to type in script source right before the end body tag, and JS sign in out.js, type text JavaScript, close that tag. And if I go back here, refresh the page, there you go, we have the bottom portion gone. So that's all good. And now I want what I want this to happen is when I click on this button, I want it to automatically focus at the top here. And the way to do that is, of course, go back to our JavaScript file. And I'm going to create a onClick execute this function type of script. So when that button is clicked, which has the ID of message box sign in, I want the focus to be on this particular area, and that area is going to be the area with a ID of username. So if I go back to this page, right now nothing happens, but if I refresh the page, there you go, and click on that, it automatically focuses to the input area. And of course now if I press this, nothing actually happens because we haven't coded that yet, and that's exactly what we're going to code now. So the next part, we're actually going to hide the invalid username at the loading stage of the page. So I'm going to create a new function, and if you're wondering why I'm wrapping these around on the $ bracket, basically what that means in jQuery is to execute the following functions when the page is ready to be loaded. So it's like document ready in normal JavaScript, except you're just typing a lot fewer characters. So in this new function, or the second function, I'm going to say hide the errors, class error there. So if I refresh the page here, the error message is gone. The next thing I want to implement is the Ajax that's going to be run when I actually click in the sign in with the valid username. So in order to do that, I'm going to create a new click function. Here I'm going to say when the sign in button is clicked, execute the following things. So I'm going to create a variable called username, and it's going to equal to the value that's currently inside the input field. And if the username retrieved is actually empty, so if username is equal to blank, or if the username is equal to enter username, which is the default text that's in place, I want it to return false. So then I'm going to say show the error message, and then return false. So if I go back here, reload the page, if I just press sign in, it says invalid username, and if I erase this and also try to sign in, it will also keep on saying that. So if I can't really see it well, so if I reload the page, try to sign in, there you go, it says invalid username. If I type something correctly in, nothing happens yet, because that's what we're going to code right now. So if the username is not blank, or if it's not enter username, the next part is to hide the big button at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that, and also show the text area button now. So if I refresh the page, type type of valid username, sign in, the bottom portion changes, as you can see right here. And now before we go to the Ajax section, I want to create a data string that's going to contain the username, that's going to pass the variable onto the relevant PHP page. So I'm going to create a new variable called data string, and say username is going to equal to the variable username. And now here comes the fun part, the really fun part. I'm going to call the Ajax function, which is so awesome. And inside I'm going to say the type of transaction or server communication. I want it to be post URL is going to be sign in out.php, and the data I want communicated is data string, and on success I want it to say function and the following. I'm going to say user a span. I'm going to so if everything is successful and the information has been sent to sign in out.php, I want the top portion to change to say welcome username and then the sign out button. So here I'm going to create that in a span tag. I'm going to say welcome username, then an exclamation mark. I'm also going to wrap this around a new span tag so I can refer to this specific username later on. And the span is going to have an ID of logged user. And then I want to create the sign out button, which is basically all it's going to do is refresh the page. So I'm going to create a link tag, and I'm going to give it an ID of sign out. And on click, I want it to basically refresh the entire page. So window, so this is a bit of JavaScript here. So window location